When we recorded this podcast last season or before last season, I'm pretty sure I dumped all over Isaiah Stewart. I just was not high on him as an NBA prospect. He moved so well on defense. He impressed the hell out of me. They experimented with him taking shots from three. Pistons fans in Hardwood Knocks' YouTube section have claimed that he is going to be an all-star one day. Uh, is he going to start this year following the departure of Mason Plumlee? And what are you sort of looking to see from him this season as a sophomore?
So to be fair to you, I was also not super impressed with the Isaiah Stewart selection, and he just like immediately like outstripped all of my expectations for him. And so like, yeah, do I think he's gonna be an all star someday? Like probably not.
I
Does
thought
that
you were
make
going to
me
go
a?
with probably and just stop. I was
It's
like,
like
wow.
does that make me a bad Pistons fan if I think that like the
I was
the
just
18th
there.
overall
It
pick
always
isn't gonna be an all
surprises
star?
me, like even in YouTube comment sections, who people cape for. And it was just I thought we were high on Isaiah Stewart in the middle of the season, but it turns out we weren't high enough.
Well, it's like if you ask Pistons fans, right? Like they've got the have you seen the creation of Isaiah Stewart?
Wait,
So
no, I'm not.
the Da Vinci photo, the creation of man, right? The picture of like God reaching out, touching Adam, and Adam like reaching out, touching God.
Yes.
Yeah. So they made that with Isaiah Stewart and Ben Wallace. That's what Pistons fans think of Isaiah Stewart, right? It's like they think like this is 2020 Ben Wallace just like beating dudes up, blocking shots around the rim, and shooting threes. Ben Wallace with threes. That's Isaiah Stewart. Pistons fans love Isaiah Stewart, man. Um, do I think Isaiah Stewart's Ben Wallace with threes? I don't. I'm encouraged though that Ben Wallace is like apparently hanging around the team and like willing to mentor Isaiah. That's really cool. He was at training camp today. It's like and he's going to be around more often. It's like that's dope.
Are we sure
But
Isaiah's not mentoring him? That's how good Isaiah Stewart might be.
but like the thing I want from Isaiah in year two is to be more assertive offensively. Like, do I want him to score like 20 points a night? No. But do I want him to take like 9 shots a night instead of 6? Like, yeah. You saw late in the season they started using him as like a pick and pop threat more. Anybody like national who is like, wait, what? Like Isaiah Stewart was shooting threes. Like, go watch the late season game against Dallas, right? Kristaps Porzingis, Boban Marjanovic, Dwight Powell. Like, none of those guys wanted to like leave the paint and guard Isaiah Stewart on the perimeter, and he hit like 3 threes, and people were like losing their minds on Twitter. Um, but the thing with Isaiah that you saw as they started doing that more was that if his like footwork wasn't absolutely pristine, like he wouldn't shoot, right? Even if he was wide open, if he like wasn't able to get, if he hadn't done it the way he'd repped it out in practice, he like couldn't do it. And like what I want from him is like see him like try to do it, even if it's not like completely perfect. He's got to let it fly a little bit more.
I mean, I think a majority of his threes, they were coming from above the break too. So
Yeah.
and I guess those are like the typical pick and pop situations. But if he's going to be able to up the volume, but even if he stays around the 33% or whatever it was, and it's just more volume, that does a lot to open up the floor still at the center position. I think that's a number where defenses, opposing centers would be forced to guard him.
Yeah, and like that, and the Pistons have really prioritized shooting this shooting this offseason in a way that they hope opens up like driving lanes for Cade and Killian, again, guys who are like good NBA athletes but not elite level NBA athletes. But like even like Cade and Killian can get to the rim and score if your big has to leave the paint to worry about Isaiah Stewart on the pick and pop, right?
The other thing about Isaiah Stewart too, and this was the thing I thought I was going to be lowest on, is he feels like, I know people, we seem like the block highlights, but he just covers or can cover so much ground in the pick and roll where he's a real deterrent. Like it's not just shot blocking. It's like he's kind of mucking up possessions before they ever reach the rim and just becomes like this functional rim protector through that way. And so I looked this up and I'm sure it's a stat that you might already know. And if you don't, maybe you hate it, but the Pistons opponents took 5.2 percentage, 5.2% fewer of their shots came at the rim with Isaiah Stewart on the floor. That's the second highest mark among everyone who logged at least 1,000 minutes last year, and only Rudy Gobert was in front of him. So the opponent frequency with which they attempted shots at the rim dropped by 5.2% with Stewart on the floor. And watching it, it's like, no, I don't think he's the next Rudy Gobert. But watching the way he can kind of play on defense, and which is something I clearly just never saw before, he actually took the floor for the NBA. That feels like accurate, that he was impacting the game in that type of way.
Yeah. I didn't know that exact statistic like that. That's
Me
cool.
stammering through it probably didn't help, but
No. I get you, but you're right in that because he's not like 6'10", or because he's not like 7 feet tall and he doesn't have like an 8 foot wingspan or whatever. It's people don't think of Isaiah Stewart as like a rim protector or an amazing defender, but he does have a really like wide wingspan for his height. I believe he's listed at 6'9", and I think his wingspan is like 7'4". So he's got like a plus 6 or 7 wingspan, and his hands are huge and real strong. And so like you could see times where it's like if he gets his hands, if he's like swiping as he retreats on the pick and roll, like that makes an impact on guards, because they're like, oh crap, like he could definitely bust up me trying to snake this pick and roll. And so they have to take that into account. So that statistic does not surprise me. It surprises me like it's at that level, but like, yeah, I would have believed it. Also, like Mason Plumlee was not an amazing rim protector for the Pistons last year. They might have something to do with it as well.
I mean, Mason Plumlee is just not a good rim protector in general, I don't think.
Yeah.
Apologies if you answered this already, but I'm assuming, I know they signed Kelly Olynyk, but getting rid of Mason Plumlee, I would think sort of implies that Stewart will start if his ankle is good. And do you expect him and Olynyk to log time together?
Yeah. Yes, I expect Stewart to start. If not immediately, then like eventually, like within the first, if not like game one, within the first 10 games, right? And Dwayne Casey did say during media day that he expects that there will be some Canadian beef stew lineups available for the Pistons. They will play Olynyk and Stewart together. I'm interested to see how those lineups go. I hope they choose not to lean on those lineups, just because like those are really the only two centers on the roster. I don't think Luka Garza is ready to play in the NBA like right now. And like I don't want to play Trey Lyles at 5 under any circumstance. And so putting both of your centers on the floor at the same time doesn't sound like an amazing move to me, but I get why they want to do it, just to see if Isaiah Stewart can cover fours, basically.